Buongiorno a tutti, ci troviamo di nuovo di fronte al nostro caro Sven Oehme, sempre graditissimo sentire cosa ne pensa sugli affari internazionali, specialmente per quanto riguarda i rapporti tra Stati Uniti e il resto del mondo, Europa in particolare. E tutto questo oggi avverrà continuando ad approfondire determinati temi che riguardano la politica economica americana, parlando anche dell'importanza o meno dell'incontro fra Donald Trump e il cancelliere Merz, il cancelliere tedesco Merz, e anche della situazione che riguarda l'ultima telefonata tra Trump e Putin per quanto riguarda l'Ucraina. Um, Hi Sven, how are you?
Hi, Valentino. Very good. So happy to be with you again, and I hope that it's useful for the people who subscribe to this podcast in Italy to get the information that I'm happy to share with you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure and our pleasure to hear you. Thank you. And the first question, Sven, let's start. The first question about the meeting between the Chancellor Merz. Today, a meeting is scheduled between German Chancellor Merz and Trump. What do you expect?
Well, when you say today the meeting is scheduled, we're talking about this Thursday, and the meeting is going to be after our podcast, after the taping of the podcast. So we can't talk about the outcome, but we can say what we might expect. And I think while the chancellor cannot really talk about trade issues specifically and cannot negotiate on behalf of the EU, but he can certainly set a positive climate towards the EU. And apparently there are also German car companies, and maybe they're joined by some other car companies from Europe. So Stellantis in Paris, which is the owner, I guess, of Fiat, it may also be involved, but I don't know. So they want to see if they can get specific positive outcome of the trade talks for the car manufacturers. So that may be an issue that he can support and that he can talk about. He has been for a number of years the CEO of BlackRock in Germany. So that is obviously a company that President Trump is very familiar with. And some of the people that support him are working for BlackRock. So that might be an additional positive aspect. But the negotiations as such on the overall trade issues are handled by the Trade Commissioner in cooperation, I guess, with the EU Commission President von der Leyen.
Yes, thank you, Sven. But is a big problem, the American economy now. U.S. manufacturing activity sank further into contraction in May, reflecting ongoing concerns about the impact of the Trump administration's erratic trade policy. The Institute for Supply Management reported Monday that its Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, fell to 48.5, down from 48.7 in April. This marked the third consecutive monthly decline for the sector. Your opinion?
Well, that may be. Now the U.S. is not. It's the largest economy in the world, so there is a lot of manufacturing, but it's not what you would think the top manufacturer as far as any sector is concerned. A lot of products are not made in the US, and that is something that President Trump would like to change. Whether that's possible and whether it's possible during the remainder of his term, so another 3.5 years, is questionable, because building a factory and creating manufacturing jobs that then have to be filled with people are issues. The problem in the US is, and similar to some European countries, that is the capabilities of the workers. We need qualified workers for factories, and there are not enough qualified workers in Europe and in the US. So that would obviously lead to more machines in a factory, more computer-driven machines. But then again, somebody has to supervise that. So it's not, as we say in the US, easy peasy to do this. It's an effort. And while some of the car manufacturers that I mentioned before have now said that they want to expand factories to the US and want to build cars in the US, Volkswagen wants to do more. Audi apparently now for the first time wants to set up a factory. But those factories are not going to become operational in a very short period of time. So that's an ongoing process. When you look at the economic relationship between Europe and the US, it continues to be the largest one in the world. And there are three pillars, as I always describe it. There is trade, the traditional trade of boxes or whatever. So stuff that you can touch being sent to the US or sent to Europe. It's going the other way. That's one area. And most people just talk about that. They don't talk about the other two pillars that I will mention now. The second pillar is trade and services. And that is growing rapidly. And there the US is larger than Europe. So more services from the US are delivered to Europe than from Europe to the US. And the final pillar are factories. So there are many factories of European companies in the US, and there are many factories of American companies in Europe. So once you build a factory, it's much more difficult to get out of it. Yeah, you could close it, but then you have a big loss if you close a factory. So the investments into the other economy on the other side of the Atlantic, they are very important, and they are really sustaining the economic relationship between Europe and the US. And then there is the trade, obviously, that we talked about. Now, on the trade issues, there may be a more positive signal. Earlier this week in Paris, the USTR, so the United States Trade Representative, met with the Trade Commissioner from Europe, Maus Šefčovič, and apparently, according to a statement by the US ambassador, it was a positive meeting, and it seemed to go in the right direction from the American perspective. So he said it was constructive, and it showed a willingness by the EU to come to an agreement with the US. Now, that is certainly much more positive than what we've heard in the past. We still have a couple of weeks until July 9th, actually, to see what the outcome will be, but they are certainly discussing this, as it seems, in a more open and constructive way, and not in a necessarily confrontational way. There are people who say, well, we should be much more confrontational, so that's from the European side. But it's very questionable whether that would help. And I think this outcome, apparently, of this meeting in Paris at the OECD, where they really talked about something else, but then they also talked about the trade issues, was apparently very positive, so that the ambassador of the United States Representative's Office, that he said, this is good, this is positive, this goes the right way. And we'll have to hope that it continues to do so. The talks between President Trump and the German Chancellor, or President Trump and Prime Minister Meloni, they're good on the side to keep up a positive view and a positive climate, but these two politicians and leaders of their respective countries, they cannot make the decision. They can be supportive of the EU Commission, but the body and the people who are dealing with the US side are the EU Commission, and specifically the Trade Commissioner and the President of the EU Commission.
Thank you, Sven. It's good. That's good. I appreciate it. Your opinion about the quote of Elon Musk. This spending bill contains the largest increase in the debt ceiling in US history. It is the debt slavery bill. Your opinion, please, Sven.
Well, Elon Musk is always rather outspoken, and the fact is, and there is agreement among the economists, that it would certainly raise the debt. It's also not yet, it still has to go through the Senate. So the impression that some may have is it's already been passed. No, it hasn't been passed. It will go to the Senate for discussion and for a vote, and the Senate may raise some more questions and issues. So it may have to be somewhat renegotiated to pass through the Senate. We'll see. But it certainly, and there's no question in the current version, it will increase the debt. And the debt will not be covered by tariffs. That was the idea that President Trump had. That's not going to be possible because there is not enough money that would be generated through the tariffs. It's a complex discussion because on the one hand, if the president wants to increase the tariffs to get more money, but then if increased tariffs lead to a reduction in trade, then that's counterproductive. So it's a give and take at different levels.
Thank you. But in your opinion, is Elon Musk the new enemy of Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, if he's the new enemy, that we will have to see. He is certainly outspoken, and he's always been outspoken, and that is not going to change. So and maybe some senators will think he's right and will listen to him and will be opposed to this bill in the current way it's laid out. So that could happen, as I said. Elon Musk has to focus on his companies. That is clear. He was also limited by a time limit, I think, of 120 days or so as a non-politician working for the White House or for President Trump. And that time is up now. And he has to go back to his company. Tesla is not in a good shape at the moment, so he has to fix that. His rockets, the ones that he needs to go to the moon and go to Mars, they had some failures. So there are some issues that where he has to take a management role again. He didn't do that, obviously, while he was in Washington.
Thank you, Sven. And now 2 words about the situation in Ukraine. For months, Trump has publicly humiliated Ukraine and Zelensky, claiming Russia is winning and Ukraine doesn't have the cards. But the last hours, with successful strikes on the Russian air bases and the Crimean bridge, proved him wrong, in my opinion. Ukraine can win. Ukraine will win. And victory will come faster if the US and the Europe give it the weapons it needs and impose real creeping sanction on Russia. What do you think about?
Well, the question is, what does it mean Ukraine will win? So what does a win look like? And certainly after after Ukraine, Zelensky was able to attack that airfield in Siberia or far into Russia. It means that now obviously Putin wants to retaliate, and that's why at the talks in Istanbul he was not open to discussing a current ceasefire. So he wants to retaliate, and that's the problem in all wars, that then after the other side does something, you want to retaliate against it, and then after they retaliate, then you say, yeah, no, but now we have to do something against them. What I find striking is that these drones were going deep into Russian airspace and were not detected. That, to me, is unbelievable, really. If Russia is so good in protecting its country, why were they able to go all the way through the airspace undetected until they came to their target and to destroy the planes?
Thank you, Sven. Thank you very much. This is the last question, the last call.
Okay.
I think now is very, very difficult to see the situation, the international situation and the American situation. So your speech is very, very important. Thank you very much. And cari amici, io direi che anche oggi Sven ha fatto il punto della situazione, secondo me, dando anche oggi segnali positivi per quanto riguarda sia la questione commerciale che segnali positivi ed obiettivi, no? Per quanto riguarda sia la questione commerciale che la questione che riguarda il conflitto in Ucraina. Ci rivediamo presto anche con Sven, un saluto a tutti.